Okay, here we are. It's your first interview. I'm Ariana. Nice to meet you again. I actually met you at Comic-Con.
I know, nice to see you
Oh,
again.
thanks for remembering me. It's funny, when I got back from Comic-Con, like I was going through my business cards and I had your dad's and I saw that he had a 248 number and I was like, wait. Um, like Happy Bunny is, I know he's not Happy Bunny, but I'm like, Happy Bunny is from down the street because I grew up in Southfield.
Uh,
I went to Southfield Lathrop, so I was like, that's crazy. So I reached out to him, and I remember he mentioned that you had a book deal, and I was like, oh, that's super exciting. So I wanted to talk to you as well. So here we are.
that's so awesome. Well, thank you. I'm so glad you reached out.
Oh, no problem. We actually have a lot in common. I went to Michigan too for undergrad.
Oh, go blue.
Yes. And I lived in Chicago before, so I'm excited to talk about all of these things as well.
Awesome.
So, was this your first Comic Con?
Yes, very first Comic-Con.
How did you like the experience?
I liked it. It was really cool. I just love stories and characters and stuff. And so there was a lot of characters and stuff that I don't recognize, but it's just so fun to like be around other people who feel the same way and who kind of like dedicate themselves to these stories and dress up and like put themselves in it. So I just love the energy and the excitement. It was great.
Yes. And how was it like to moderate a panel?
It was cool. And my dad made it very easy because he had pretty much everything planned out. So I really just had to introduce him, throw in a couple questions there. But it was really cool, like being up on the stage and having a little microphone and everything. It felt very official.
Yes. So, how did you become interested in art? Obviously, then living in very much an art household. How did you become interested?
Well, yeah, like you say, my dad, it was really just always around me. My dad was super encouraging. Growing up, he had converted our garage into an art studio for himself. And then when I was little, he kind of just put like a little table in there right next to his. So whenever he was working, I would kind of like clock in right next to him and do my little scribbles or whatever I was up to. And he would always help me kind of like write books when I was little. He would sort of, with a lot of guidance, be like, what kind of character can you come up with? What could they be facing? What could they be wanting? Or so I feel like that was kind of just really baked into my childhood. It was kind of like what I did with my dad and what I did when I had was just looking to have fun. So that's the origin. And then I just really fell in love with it, kept doing it my whole life, was in like art club in school and stuff like that, and then went to art school. But from the very beginning, yeah, it was definitely there.
When do you think you knew that you're like, okay, this is my career in life rather than this is kind of a hobby or something that is like a form of expression, but not my career?
Um, I don't know. I kind of, in my head when I was little, I kind of like experimented with like other sorts of jobs. Like I was like, maybe I could be a chef, maybe I could be a fashion designer, maybe I could be a detective, like other little things. But I feel like because it was like in my household and like modeled to me from such a young age, it kind of felt like the most likely career for me. Like it kind of just felt like the family business. And it was sort of talked about in my house. Like I probably would eventually find myself in some sort of creative career. So I think even when I was considering other options, it was all very, for the most part, kind of like creative and kind of like wanting to make stuff. Has always kind of just been like my driving force.
Is your mom a creator as well?
Yeah, my mom is a really talented painter and graphic designer. She makes really cool stuff. She's a big scuba diver. And so she paints a lot of like the stuff that she sees when she's scuba diving. Like she does amazing watercolors of like fish and coral reefs and stuff like that. And yeah, so she's very creative too.
So yeah, that is definitely the family business. I gave a quizzical look because I haven't heard of an avid scuba diver in Michigan before.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What made you decide to go to Michigan for art school?
I think it was they have a great program. I toured there. I loved it. I fell in love with the facilities. I also love that they have just like such a great university, like outside of just the art program. I loved that I could take these like really intensive like art classes and then also study other things. I love, like, I took a lot of classes, but I love like English classes in particular. Like, I love reading, so I wanted to make sure that I had like a great English department and other stuff like that. And I was also just really attracted to, like, I think the scale of the school. Like, I was like, I'll be open to all kinds of things that I never would have found. I joined like an improv team. I did like all kind of stuff that I just never would have done. I thought like it was a great place that would allow me to branch out and explore a lot of interests, I think.
What was it like to actually study art though? Because from what I've heard, the people who actually did go to Michigan for art school and people who've gone to art school in general, it's a different process than, oh, I'm just making what I want to make instead of being taught. And since you have graduated, have you kind of had to unlearn things? Like, what's that like to be in art school and then not be in art school?
Yeah, that's a good question. I definitely, the first couple years, there's a lot of parameters placed on you in art school. It's very specific. You're kind of just focused on like technique and skill and like theory and stuff like that that you can like study, and it's not as creative. It's more just like technical.
Mhm.
And then the later years, you have a little bit more room, but it's still pretty guided. And then like actually right after I graduated, I kind of did experience a feeling of, I felt a little bit less like free in my art making just because I was so used to like critique after critique, like anticipating like what are my classmates going to think about this? What is my professor going to think about this? Like worrying about my grades, stuff like that. And then recently, this like for about a year in Chicago here, I've been teaching art classes to kids. And that really sort of like unlocked the part of me that had been made kind of like tight and like nervous about making art. Suddenly, when it was like only little kids in the room, I felt like a little kid again, and I was just drawing more freely. So yeah, there definitely was some stuff to unlearn, like sort of like a fear of like being judged. Um, which yeah, you totally cannot have if you're like making anything creative. It's like the worst. It totally hinders you. Yeah. But being around kids, I feel like just switch that right back off.
Yeah. What made you, well, how long have you lived in Chicago?
I've lived here for 2 years. 2 years about.
What made you decide to move to Chicago?
I really have just always loved it here. I would come here like with my family on vacation. And then after, so I graduated in 2020, right into the pandemic. So I moved home for a couple years, just worked and saved money and stuff. And then when things started to open up, everybody I knew from college had kind of scattered. Like there was no central place for me to go. So I just picked somewhere like that I thought would be cool. I thought I could learn a lot here. And it was still, I love the Midwest, so I didn't want to be too far from my family. I was like, New York would be cool, but it's so far. Yeah, but I'm really happy here. I love Chicago.
That's great. What neighborhood do you live in?
I'm in Lakeview right now.
Oh, I lived in Lakeview by
Oh,
the,
really?
yeah, the Marianos,
I'm
Lakeview East.
yes, I'm so close to there. I'm right by there.
I lived in Lakeview for a little bit and then I lived in Edgewater, which I liked a lot as well. So very fun and creative neighborhoods. How do you feel like Chicago has influenced your art?
Ooh, that's a good question. When I first got here, I would kind of like go out and sit in the parks and stuff. There's just so much green space. So I would sit in the parks and just kind of like do little drawings of the buildings and stuff. Like I felt like when I was in college, I studied abroad. That was like a mandatory part of our program.
Oh, wow.
I know, so interesting. So I studied abroad, and then a big part of our study abroad program was like going out and drawing things, just like sitting around the city drawing. So I kind of like took that same approach right when I got here, and I felt like it just sort of like made me feel like a part of the city. Like you really get to know something when you're drawing it. And so I just felt like that was the way that I kind of like introduced myself to the city, or that the city introduced itself to me, was like through drawing it. So I think that that probably has influenced my style in some ways. And then outside of that, I visit the museums, I visit the galleries, I walk, there's murals everywhere. It kind of just feels like you're surrounded by art at all times here. There's just so much like culture going on. So I feel like it is kind of just like through osmosis, like entering my work.
Where is your favorite place to draw?
Ooh, that's a good question. Like outside in the city?
Yes, yes, yes.
I used to live in Lincoln Park, so I would go to Lincoln Park often. And it's so big that there's so many different things you can draw there. Like you get a great view of the water, you're so close to the beach.
Mhm.
And then of course the skyline. I never get sick of the skyline. Yeah, so I would say Lincoln Park. I like to go to Lincoln Park.
Yeah. And where did you study abroad?
Italy. I went to Florence.
How long were you there?
About maybe a month and a half or 2 months, something like that. It was kind of a shortened summer semester.
That's crazy. And how did Italy kind of influence you?
I feel like a lot of what we did in Italy was drawing from observation, um, which is different from what I do now, which is more like drawing from my imagination.
Mhm.
But I felt like when I was drawing so much from observation, we would use live models and we would go out and draw like buildings, churches, we would go draw gardens, stuff like that. I do feel like practicing drawing all of that stuff while I was looking at it kind of gave me like in my head sort of like a vocabulary of things like once you draw something once it's kind of like in your memory, like it's I feel like it's something you can kind of like use again and again. So we would have a live model that we were drawing for like 8 hours just in many different poses. So I feel like that kind of gave me a much better understanding of like the body, like the way the body moves. So now when I'm drawing from my imagination, it's like a little bit easier to just kind of like guess and then make little tweaks and stuff.
Speaking of your imagination, I've seen a lot of your art. Your use of pink is so interesting. How do you kind of is that your favorite color first off?
Yes, it's my favorite color.
And how like I don't know how to describe it. It's feminine but not, it's psychedelic but not. Like how would you describe your use of pink? Cuz it's definitely like a thorough line through all of your work.
Yeah. That is such a good question. Yeah, I love pink. I love the combination of pink and red. I don't know what it is. It's like in some ways I feel like it's just like my favorite flavor. Like I have no explanation. It just tastes good every time. Like it's just delicious to me, like no matter what.
Yeah.
I do feel like it has sort of like a dream-like quality to me. Like it makes me think of like Glinda, like the Good Witch, like coming down in like a pink bubble. Like it feels very fanciful to me. Um, and then I also think because it's so like dreamy and soft and cute, usually it's really easy to kind of like make it a little bit weird if you like pair it with something darker or pair it with something like a weirder subject matter. I just like it. Like I think as a color it has like so much personality. Um but yeah, I do love I always come back to pink. I love pink.
I was just like, it's pink, but it's not true. It was just very interesting to kind of see that. But also, it's funny when I ran into you guys at Comic Con, your dad was like, "Oh, she has a book. Talk about it, Summer." And I'm like, "Oh, and talk about it." And then I realized looking through your Instagram that like you had just gotten the book deal like a couple days earlier.
Yeah.
So obviously, congrats on the book deal. What was that process like to get a book deal? Did you create the book before and then you sold it? Did you have an agent before and then craft it? What was that process like?
Yeah. So I created the book before. It was kind of like it's the third book that I've made. So the first one that I've sold, the third one I've made, just to when I was starting out, I felt so frustrated, like it was all happening so slowly. So if anyone watching this is going through anything like this, it's the third one I made. Um, and it was a really long process. So I wrote the entire thing. I wrote it all in rhyme, which it's no longer rhyming, but I wrote it in rhyme. I drew it all, or I sketched it all, and I made a few like final pages, but I had sketches for everything. And my dad works in publishing, so he kind of like made this connection with me and an editor. And it was a long process back and forth because the editor was kind of like, I can kind of see where this is going, but I think it needs work. So there was so many iterations of this draft before we reached something that they were interested in purchasing. I went back and forth a million times. The art style completely changed. It got totally rewritten. The rhyme was just not totally serving this story. I love rhyming stuff, but it can be kind of limiting, and it wasn't allowing me to tell the story exactly the way it needed to be told. So through this long process, it got kind of like rendered into this more fully formed story. And then at that point, they were interested in it. So then I sold it, and now we're in the process of me completing like the artwork. So because I only sold it with mostly sketches, now I'm in the stage of like doing the final artwork for it all.
And are you mostly doing the artwork digitally? Is that like kind of your main medium?
Yeah, it is. It's all digital. I, for a long time, I was like all traditional materials. Like I love my true love is colored pencils. I love colored pencils. I love gouache and watercolor, all of that stuff. But right now I'm in a really tiny apartment and I don't even really have a drawing desk. So I have gotten more into digital, and it's just like amazing how you can have like so many materials at your disposal. So like it's just so much all in my iPad. I can sit on my bed and do it. It's amazing. So yeah, I've been mostly digital in the city.
Yes, yes. Because Chicago's like little.
Yeah, tiny.
Yes. Um, you've also done a lot of different work. So you have this Hot Topic line of shirts, which you had mentioned in your email, which was a bit darker than the direction you want to go and the direction you did go. Why did you kind of decide that direction for Hot Topic?
Um, I think that I did that about 2 years ago, actually, was when I like created that. And at the time, I think I was a little bit more thinking about where my opportunities might be and then creating for those opportunities. So I had made a connection with a company called Goody Two Sleeves that does distribution of like licensed stuff. So they are the ones who connected me with Hot Topic. And I kind of had Hot Topic in mind, like as a store that I'd love to have my stuff in. I love Hot Topic. So I was like, oh, wouldn't that be cool? So I kind of had them in mind. And a lot of the stuff there has like this sort of like dark humor, like edgier humor thing. And so I sort of started with that as my inspiration and went from there. Which I still love. I love dark stuff. I love scary stuff, weird stuff. Um, but then when I guess maybe like after working with the kids and sort of just like thinking more about what made me really happy to make, like what felt like playful and stuff. And I started to create more based on like what I was interested in, and then just hoping other people would like it too, which felt a little more authentic. I found myself going a little bit less dark.
What do you think working with the kids kind of, it seems to be like a pivotal moment in your career and in your development that kind of changed things for you? What do you think made that happen?
Um, I think that there was so much like I think that one of the ways that you can really I think one of the best ways to learn something is to figure out how you would teach it to someone else. Um, so when it would come to, I taught a huge range of ages. I taught like 1 years old and like 13 years old and like everything in between. So when it came to teaching the older kids and like thinking about how I would teach to them, it really made me think about like my own understanding. And I believe it kind of like crystallized like how I think about like drawing a hand, like something that specific, or like I found myself talking to them like when they would draw something and they didn't really like it, I would find myself like talking them through it and sort of like actually talking myself through it. Um so I feel like it forced me to think about the drawing itself and like what it means to draw something, and how like you can't be too caught up. Like you do a bad drawing, who cares? Like you do the next drawing. Like it's just like that kind of mentality. Um, and then also they just have so much fun drawing, like especially the younger ages. like the way they would do like they would like draw a face like with big teeth and then like color all the teeth a different color. And I would be like, and like it wouldn't even occur to them that like teeth are white. They would just like do whatever felt like playful to them. And like watching them and being like, yeah, there really are. I mean, obviously there's no rules with art, but like really being like, there are no rules. Like I just loved doing that. I was so inspired by them. I would go home, I'd be like, you're right. Like blue teeth are more fun. Like they were just like watching them have so much fun reminded me like how much fun I would have with it and kind of like put me back in that headspace, I think.
Yes. You also have done work with Carter Kench. How did that connection happen, and what was it like kind of working with a client who has their own fan base, but also having your own signature touch to it?
Yeah. So that connection came about actually. There was a guy on my improv team, and he is like my improv team in college. So his girlfriend is Carter's sister. So that's kind of like how I met his sister, and then his sister introduced me to Carter. And they were so great to work with. Carter, if anyone like knows him, he's super imaginative. His mind is all over the place. So when he came to me with this like merch idea, he sent me like a lot of ideas. Like he had this idea about like a theme park that was based on him and like his brand, and it would have games and it would have all this stuff. Um, so it was fun because he has a brand and he has like words that he associates with himself and objects and sort of like iconic things that he owns. He has like cats that like needed like all kinds of things that are like him. It was fun to like just get a shopping list of those almost and then figure out like how to like place them all over the place. So it was a lot of fun, and he was great about wanting it to be in my style, but then still kind of like using his brand to inform like the subject matter. He was a lot of fun to collaborate with.
Yeah, and I think it's a great match too, because what I notice about your work and how I interpret it is that it feels, even though what I've seen is two-dimensional, it feels like you would enter that world and this is how you would interact with it. So I definitely kind of see that layer of how the amusement part would match with your work and how that was such a perfect connection. Um,
Yeah.
you have a brand deal with Goldfish. You're going to have social media posts with that. How did that come about, and what can we expect with that?
So that was another college connection. I was in art school with a girl named Rachel who works at PXP Media, which is the advertising agency that handles Goldfish and other Pepperidge Farm accounts. So she kind of reached out. She's an art director there, and she had this idea for like a promotional material for their social media, which would be kind of like a game board, like a board game board, based on Goldfish, kind of like and their brand and their flavors and all of that kind of stuff. But they really wanted it to be not using their characters. They have a lot of characters you might have seen like in the commercials, like Finn and stuff. So they wanted to kind of like create new characters in a completely new style. So they were looking for an illustrator that had like an established style kind of to work with. So Rachel reached out and I kind of like made a little proposal sketch and everything, and it worked out. We went back and forth for a long time making little tweaks and stuff, but that was another case where they gave me a ton of creative freedom. I was allowed to work totally in my own style. And it was so much fun coming up with the little names of everything and the look of it. It was so much fun. It's a really long game board, so it's going to be posted in like a few different pieces. And that will be coming out soon. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Well, what does it feel like as a creative that you have your own style and people are seeking you out because of that style, not that you have to form to other styles? How does that feel like?
It feels really good. It feels so good. It was something that I really struggled with for a long time because I love so many different artists who work in so many different styles. And like when I see those artists, I'm so inspired by them. Like I want to like I see little things, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I want to do like a hyper realistic drawing, or I want to do a collage. I want to do like all of these things. And I'm still like that. Like I love working in all different ways and everything, like especially in my free time. But I kind of felt like when I just sat down and I was drawing like quickly, like trying to like get an idea across, there was kind of a style that just came out more naturally, like almost like a handwriting, like it just came out, like it felt really natural. Um, and so then like kind of just leaning into that and not really like taking the time to like pick it apart and be like, maybe I should be trying to be more like this person or this person, just letting it come naturally and then seeing that other people were responding to it felt so good. And it makes my job so much easier to do something that feels more natural to me than to try to be more like contrived or trying to be someone else.
Yeah. But obviously, with especially when writing the book, you had to have a lot of feedback, some positive, some negative. How do you kind of turn that off and go like, I'm still Summer. I still have to speak up for what I really want, but I do need to make edits. How do you kind of balance that all out?
Um, Part of it is sometimes, well, I have to be really careful because whenever I get like negative feedback, like any normal person, my first instinct is like, it hurts, like it feels terrible. And then when it's time to like make edits, it can feel just like, oh my gosh, like why? I guess like it's really, I have to just get to a place where like I'm being very honest with myself and not based on ego, not based on like laziness, like not wanting to make edits or like being so worried about like having gotten it right in the first place. I have to just like get real and be like, is this going to improve the work? And if it is, then it just must be done. And it doesn't matter if it wasn't the way I did it like in the first place or if it takes me longer. I have to just kind of put the work first and just say like whatever is best for the work and whatever improves it, whatever like gets this to a place where it's the best it can be, I have to just do and nothing else really matters.
Yes. You're also on social media and you show kind of the process of making your art on there. How is that like? Is you consider people's feedback on there? Do you kind of just put it out and it is what it is? What's kind of your relationship with social media?
I have right now I have a very small presence on social media, so people have been very nice to me. I've gotten like on TikTok here and there, I've gotten like a few little like nastier comments. But for the most part, it's been really kind. Um, I think that it was helpful for me growing up with my dad, kind of sort of like drilling into me from the beginning that like you make stuff for yourself first. Like you have to be making it for yourself first. And if you are making it for yourself first, then you can always fall back on that. Like you'd love, of course, I would love for everyone in the world to love everything that I make, but like it's just not possible. And if nobody likes it, I can always come back to a place of like, at least I like it. Like I made it for myself first. It really, what I felt like I would get myself into trouble is if I started to make something like for other people and then they didn't even like it, then it's like heartbreaking. But if you put yourself first and you say like at least I like it, I think you can always come back to that.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I do.
Yes. Um, I want to talk a little bit about either like your nicest client or your toughest, your brother. I've seen that you've done some art for his music. What is it like working with a sibling and kind of creating in tune with their style, but also your own?
Yeah, that has been so fun. It's been so fun. He's a really talented musician. He makes like great music. So I and he's been making music for so long, like even in high school, when he was in high school, I'm 4 years older. But even when he was in high school, like he would ask me to like make little posters for him or little stuff like that. And I love it. I'm a very proud big sister. Um, in terms of style, he's very collaborative. We don't really like ever fight and we're not very competitive because I think because part of it is that his domain is like mostly music
Mhm.
and my domain is kind of like visual art, and we really respect each other's like expertise and like how much time we've spent on it. So I always defer to him, like if it's anything musical, and like, and he's pretty good about like letting me make choices and kind of being like, I trust your vision. He does have a lot of notes, but he does, but he's very good about like, this is what I think, but like I trust your instincts, I trust all of that. And I think he and I just like sort of like similar stuff, so it makes it easier there. Yeah, but he's great to work with. I like it a lot.
What's your typical day like as an artist? Because you don't really have like a 9 to 5 schedule. Like, what's your kind of typical day?
Yeah, it's really all over the place depending on like what kinds of deadlines I have or like what kind of stuff I need to be doing. Um, Sometimes it'll be like a more office work like day, like spreadsheets and emails and stuff like that, keeping track of the stuff like that. But more often than not, I kind of just wake up. I do a sort of 9 to 5 schedule. Sometimes I work later. Um, but I just sort of wake up and like begin whatever work there is to be done that day. Oftentimes I'm juggling multiple projects at once, so I kind of just like keep an eye on like the different deadlines and stuff. Like I'll have to do sketches for this and then final work for this and then send this email. It's all over the place. I have a lot of like lists going, so I kind of just wake up and get started on the to-do list and then stop when it's done.
Do you listen to music when you create or no?
Yeah, I do. I listen to music, I listen to audiobooks, I listen to podcasts. I like to have the TV on. I really feel like I like to have like stuff going in my mind kind of. I have to I turn it off when I'm writing or when I'm editing text or something like that, but yeah, when I'm working on something visual, I often find like I do better work if my mind is kind of occupied and then my eyes is kind of like doing its own thing. Yeah, I love to have stuff going on.
What artists do you like right now?
I love, okay, well, there's tons of artists, but right now because I'm mostly focused on like children's picture books, I've been like looking at a lot of those. My very favorite is Mary Blair, um, who is an illustrator from a long time ago. She did a lot of work for, do you know her?
It sounds so familiar. Like, I have to look right now because I'm like, I feel like I've seen this everywhere.
She did a lot of work for Disney.
Yes, yes, yes. A lot of the Alice. Yes, that's why.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. She did amazing work and she's just such like a master of color and composition, and her work is so deceptively simple. Like it's so perfectly put together. She's a huge inspiration. Um, I love Hilary Knight, who did the illustrations for Eloise, those books, Eloise at the Plaza, which was like my very favorite when I was little. I go back to those all the time. I love Maurice Sendak, who did Where the Wild Things Are, those illustrations. Um, and then I just love to study like children's picture books. Like I just go to the library, check a bunch out, go through them. Yeah, that's kind of like where my head is right now, is mostly like picture book illustrators.
Yeah, I could definitely see them too because you have that use of shapes as well, and they do as I see it. I see
Yeah.
it. For music, who's kind of like on your playlist right now?
Ooh. Well, I love Lana Del Rey. I love Taylor Swift. I love David Bowie. I love the Talking Heads. I love, I listen to a lot of stuff from when I was younger. Like I love like Hilary Duff.
It's so motivating because it's so hopeful.
It is. It makes me feel like a kid. Like it just like it's just like great music. I listen to old stuff like that. I love like musical theater. So I listen to like Wicked and Hamilton and stuff like that. I really love all kinds of music. I'll give anything a try.
Awesome. So, I would love once your book comes out to interview you again about the book during that whole press tour thing. But I was so excited. This has been amazing. I've learned so much as well. Congrats on your first interview.
Thank you. Thank you. You made it very easy.
Oh, thank you. So yes, I will definitely follow up with you. I can't wait to be in contact with you with other things. And congrats on everything. I'm so excited to see what comes.
Thank you so much. This has been great. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. And I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, talk to you soon.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye.